Dayagan from
I am Daisy C. Biori. So now let's proceed.
Everyone, I am Micah Jane Carmen from
I am Riza May Pitalina Modelo.
Katie Pablo.
I'm Marina Mingon.
Sir Ariel, our instructor.
My name is Fatima Tan.
Everyone, Sir
Everyone, my name is Marcy Sigayan.
Good day everyone. I am Daisy C. Biori from BTL Ed HE1. My assigned topic is all about the decorative motif in symbol classification. Decorative motif in symbol classification. There are times when we do not understand what is being meant by a word, a thought, an act, or a thing. We need other things to describe them in order to properly understand their meaning. This is particularly true when we are dealing with works of an art and literary world. This is why symbol and motif are created to help us understand. So, what is motif? Motif is an image, spoken or written word, sound, act, or another visual or structural device that has symbolic significance. Ginagamit ang motifs sa pagbuo at sa pagbigay alam sa isang paksa or tema sa pampanitikang trabaho. Motif typically are used in one of three ways. First, a single object that appears multiple times throughout the work with most of the emphasis placed on the item. Second, a collection of related objects that appears multiple times to emphasize the theme. Third, a collection of seemingly unrelated that serve to draw attention to the theme in a subtler manner. There are classification of motif, which is geometric motif, realistic or natural motif, stylized motif, and lastly, abstract motif. Let's talk geometric motif. These motifs include line in various forms such as vertical, horizontal, diagonal, and curve. They from fabric design, tulad ng strips, plage, check, and circle. Ang geometric design ay pangunahan ng mata or disenyo na nilikha. Realistic or natural motif. Natural motif portray as a direct replica of things as they exist in nature, such as flowers on trees, animals in jungle, human figure, and natural things. Sila din ay tinatawag na novelty pattern. Stylized motif. These are simplified variation or natural or man-made objects that are no longer recognizable. Ang motif na ito ay puno ng pagkamalikhain bilang resulta ng isang ilustrador interpretasyon ng natural na umiiral na bagay. Abstract motif. These are combination of color, size, and shape without relationship to natural or man-made object. Ito din ay puno ng kulay at interes sa isang tela. Ang uri ng disenyo na ito ay ginagamit sa modernong sining. That's all. Thank you.
Have a nice day, everyone, especially to Sir Ariel, our instructor. For now, I will be going to present my assigned topic, which is symbol and the type of symbol. First, what is symbol? The term symbol comes from the Greek word symbolon, which mean contract, token, insignia, and means of identification. So, ang term daw ang symbols daw kay nagikan ni siya sa Greek word which is mo siyang symbolon. Pero ang means sa symbolon, mo siya ang means is identification. Through symbols, ideas and meanings are presented. In a symbol, there is both concealment and revelation. So pinaagi daw sa symbol makakuha tag mga ideas and meaning sa kana ato, for example nakakita tag ka ng mga symbol diha. So makakuha na sa itong hunahuna kung unsa na siya ang meaning and ideas ana nga symbol. Symbols facilitate communication by giving a common reference point of a variety of original disparate of ideas. Symbols are universal in the sense they transcend history. Siyempre, ang symbols, makita gyud nato sa bisag mag-search ta sa Google or sa whole world, ang symbol gyud is everywhere. Bisag asa gyud nato siya makita sa mga kuan gani, sa mga unsa na siya mga gadgets, na gyud sa mga symbols, sa mga kanang mga packs, na gyud sa mga symbols always. Bisag asa ka makita, universal gyud ang symbol gyud. Symbols depicted on objects allows us to decode some of the meanings behind them and understand better the culture that made and used them. So, ang symbols daw depicted on object. Ang symbols kay makita nato sa object. Or in other words, kung ato pag yung palawakon ng ato ang mga huna-huna, ang mga butang daw mo naga-represent daw na siya og mga symbolism in order for us nga makasabot ta kung unsa ang buot ipasabot sa meaning sa symbols. On some occasion, the object itself, such as an item of clothing or a piece of regalia, becomes the symbol. The motivation behind the use of symbol are varied: to impose power, to assert position, to protect the wearer or as identification with a family or community, where not all members of society are literate. Symbols are crucial in communicating ideas or affinities. They can be represented or abstract, individual, or repeated. A symbol is an object, a picture, a written, or a sound that is used to represent something else either by resemblance, convention, or association. So ang symbols daw, pwede na siya sa object, picture, written word, or sound. So mag-cite tag mga example. Mag-cite una sa object. So unsa man ang pwede nato ma-example sa symbol sa object. So ang pwede nato siya ma-example is like the ball, ang bola. So isa na siya sa symbolism. So ang bola pag makita nato unsa may makita unsa may mauna-una nato sa bola. Kasi ba ang bola kay usa naman na siya ka simbolismo or symbolism. So ang mabutang lang sa itong nauna kay ang bola di ay pwede na siya gamiton as pagdula sa basketball or sa pagpauntol-untol. Picture. So unsa may kasagaran nato ma-cite sa example ang symbol sa picture. So pwede siya example nato sa kanang naa sa ato ang cellphone kanang mga kuan gud kanang site sa gallery, symbol sa gallery. So pwede na siya magamit nato as a symbol kay kabalo man ta sa meaning ana sa sign guys sa gallery kabalo na ta sa mga sulod na siya syempre picture gyud. Then written word, di ba sa math di ba daghan mo kanang mga symbol sa written word. So mo na siya ma-example like for example sa kanang addition, so isa na siya ka symbol, or minus o kanang mga times or multiplication, so isa na siya ka symbol. Then or sound. So sound, unsa may pwede nato ma-sign symbolism sa sound. So example sa pag mag-uwang na ang kanang kuan or kanang magtingog na ang kanang ambulance. So unsa yung butang nato sa una-una? Di ba isa naman sa ka-sign or isa na sa ka-sign or symbols. Pag magtingog na ang ambulance, so may mabutang nato sa tong una-una, di ba? Na rescue or something patient. Every language has symbols. In fact, our names are symbol that is represent us an individual. So, syempre, butang isa di, in fact, our names are symbol. So, sa ato yung kuan, sa ato ang mga pangalan, syempre, napo na siya mga symbols. Like for example, sa kanang mga natao sa November or December, so namay mga nakakuan jud ana nga mga simbolismo, nga tawag lang mga Sagittarius, kanang mga Leo, mga ana. So nasa naka zodiac sign siya. Words and language in a broader sense are created by symbol by which human communicate with each other. So syempre, pinagi daw sa symbol ang mga ang everyone sa tuwa kay maka-communicate ta og tarong. Through our experience and from different sources, we create symbols in order to explain and understand something that we have to interpret. A symbol can be used to change the meaning of a word or phrase. They can change the way we view things. So kini, ang symbols daw kay pwede nato siya ma-change. Depende po na sa tuwa kung unsa atong pagtanaw na. Example, ang pagtanaw sa kay nga meaning kay, uy, kanang mao man din na siya nga meaning. Meaning sa kanang symbol sa kanang nagot sa CR kanang mga female o male o female. So kana pwede nato siya i-change depende na sa imong ideas. To get the meaning of a word, it is necessary to use symbols so that it can be understood well. Pareha ato sa example nato sa kanang sa CR kanang male o female. Kung imong sabon syempre mapanjog ka murag masipyat ka, pero pag imong imong tamata baraon og imong sabton ang kana nga meaning. So dito gyud ka, for example, ikaw male ka nya imong nasudlan dai kay female nga symbol. So dapat imo siyang i-sabton ang imong mga sabton nimo ang kana nga symbol para nakay mga kuha nga ideas ug di ka magkamali. The meaning of a symbol depends largely its usage, its history and purpose. So diri na types of symbols. So naatay there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 symbols. There are 8 types of symbols. Number 1, iconograms are illustrated. Iconograms are illustrated representation. They are iconic sign which, as illustrative representation, emphasize the points of common between the signifier and the signified. Number 2, pictograms are pictorial representation such as isotype. Pictograms are iconic signs which represent complex facts, not through words or sounds but through visual carriers of meaning. Number 3, cartograms are topographical representation with complex function and iconic facts. For example, an atlas or the ground plan of a house. Number 4, diagrams are functional representation. They are visual signs which are partly iconic representation but are more functional carries that illustrate, for example, a sequence of facts and functions. Number 5, ideograms represent a concept. Typically, ideograms correspond to the sign as a symbol which relate to the object or concept referred to, independently of any format identification with it. Note that many symbols can fall into multiple categories, but the context and intentions will help us understand how to read them. Number 6, logograms are conceptual representation like writing. They are visual, referential linguistic signs that do not take the phonetic dimensions into consideration. Number 7, typograms are topographical representation. A typogram is a sign that is also composed of a sign derived from a written reporter such as the alphabet. Number 8, phonograms are phonic representation. A phonogram is a sign that is used to signify linguistic or other sounds. So here are some examples of 8 types of symbol. The example of iconograms, pictograms, cartograms, diagrams, ideograms, logograms, typograms, and phonograms. And that would be all. Thanks for listening, and God bless.
Good day everyone. My name is Fatima Tan from BTLED HE1. So my topic's about indigenous Philippine arts and craft. So before I start my discussion, allow me to ask you a question about what are the traditional arts and craft here in our country. Yes, the examples are the weaving, metalsmith, pottery, wood carving, and goldsmith. Muna siya ang famous sa ato ang country na ginavalue gihapon sa atong local and tourist people. But one of the most precious traditional livelihoods that still kept until today is the weaving. Kabalo naman mo unsa ng weaving, paghahabi. Weaving originated in the pre-colonial times in Cordillera, the tribal groups here in the Philippines. The natives used backstrap looms that consist of sticks, ropes, and the strap na ginahikot sa ilahang waist to produce blankets and articles of clothing like this. Next is the piña cloth, produced in looms throughout the province of Antique. Piña cloths is made from the fabrics obtained from the leaves of pineapple plants. So, ang piña di ay makaproduce day siya cloth like Barong Tagalog. Example of that is the Barong Tagalog. That is the formal menswear here in our country, the Philippines. So, next is the abaca fiber. Abaca fiber is ginahabi, ginawave para to make sinamay fabric and abaca ropes. So like this. So the example of that is the bags, currency, especially atong money. Atong money, paper money, is consist siya og 80% cotton and 20% of abaca fabric. And also the Cordillerans also make baskets to use as their storage of foods when they go to the mountain terrace to raise crops, and also they use the basket to carry the grains, and ginabutangan pa nila mga gamit, especially pag mag-ato sila bukid. And they also use the basket as a fish trap to catch fish like this. So next is, many Filipino make pots in different size, shapes, and designs, which are usually geometric with styled, nature-themed motifs, just like in the picture. Muna siya ang mga klase-klaseng pot na ginamay sa ato ang country. The example of that is the palayok. Palayok, diba, muna siya ang atong nailan naman goro ninyo na. So, palayok, which is used for cooking, and also it is made with clay. And next is the banga, like that, or tapayan, that is used for storing liquids or water jugs sa ilaha. And also the stove clay made or dakalan na ginagamit og lutoan sa ilaha. And then the Bornay pottery in the Ilocos Sur is still lively tradition that continues up to the present until now, until in this generation. So, kita sa mga Pilipino, hawd po daw ta og wood carving. Filipinos so good at wood carving. The popular wood carving of the Filipino is the Santos, the nature gods sa ilaha. Kita na mo ana. So, ang ato kay mga anitos, ay lahat mga anitos, ato ang mga santos. So, and also the statue of Christ and the Blessed Mother, like in that picture. And when it comes to jewelry making, the Philippines is also known as the pearls and semi-precious stones because we adapted from our neighbors like the Chinese. That's why our country has been practiced in the jewelry making. The most popular jewelry pieces are actually made of gold and silver. Example of that is the earrings, rings, bracelets, pendants, necklace, and cufflinks na ginabutang sa kuan sa mga cloth. And that's all about the indigenous Philippines arts and craft. Thank you.
So, good afternoon everyone. Sir, good afternoon. So, this day I will discuss about Lesson 2, Souls and Space and Symmetry, which is Introductions, Arts and Space, Space and Perspective, and the Tarogan. Soul and Space and Symmetry Art. So, introduction. So, what we know and what we see often are different. Objects appear to get smaller as they recede into the distance, though we know that identical objects will not change size based on their distance from us. So, parallel lines appear to eventually come together on the horizontal line, even though we know that the train tracks never actually met. So, the so-called primitive art is often based on what the artist knows. So, Nazis, things deeper in space, often the space is flat, a sort of bird's eye view with objects not overlapping, so but simply placed on top of one another in a flat arrangement. So, for example, Grandma Moses paintings and Persian miniatures. So, describing what is real and not real is more complex than at first glance. So, with the Renaissance, artists became concerned with trying to create any illusions of depth in painting. So, modern art, however, did not want to create any illusions. What we see is what we get. So, it may be a blue circle on a white field. It does not pretend to be anything else, which then is the illusion. So, which is the reality? Let's go to the art in space. So, when we say art in space, is at times idealistic and redundant. After all, what is sculpture but an exploration of space, volume, and three-dimensional? So, let's go to the space and perspective. So, creating perspective in art relies on the judicious use of space. So, in a linear perspective drawing, for instance, artists create the illusion of space to imply the scene is three-dimensional. So, they do this by ensuring that some lines stretch to the vanishing point. In the landscape, a tree may be large because it is in the foreground, while the mountains in the distance are quite small. Though we know in reality that the tree cannot be larger than the mountain. So this is use of size, gives the scene perspective, and develops the impression of space. So likewise, an artist may choose to move the horizon line lower in the picture. So the negative space created by the increased sky can add to the perspective and allow the viewer to feel as if they can walk right into the scene. Let's go to the Torogan. So when we say the Torogan is the ancestral house of the upper class, which we called Maranao. In the Lanao region of Mindanao, it is the dwelling place of the Dato along with his wives and children. So there could not be any house of larger than Torogan of the Dato within the Sultanate. For this signifies rank, prestige, and wealth. The existing Torogans were built by the community and the slaves for Dato in 1880s. So, the Torogan is the traditional residence of the reigning Sultan of the Maranao. So, people in his family. It is where the community traditionally gathers for wedding, Thanksgiving rites, enthronement, and vigils for the dead. So, it is a masterpiece of Filipino craftsmanship. Carved on the Torogan wooden post is what we call the niyaga. So, a stylish mythical snake design that can be found in many Muslim artworks. So, the windows of Torogan are slits and richly framed in wood panels with ochre designs located in the front of the house. So the communal kitchen is half a meter lower than the main house, is both used for cooking and eating. The distinct high gable roof of the Torogan, thin at the apex and gracefully flaring out to the eaves, sits on a huge structures enclosed by slabs of timber and lifted more than 2 meters above the ground by a huge trunk of a tree that was set on rock. The end floor beams lengthened as panalongs that seem to lift up the whole house. So the Torogan is suffused with decorations. There were diagonal at the apex of the roof, also an intricately curved what we call tinai awalay, ochre designs in the top floor, on windows, and on panalongs. There were also brightly colored waves or malongs hanging from the rafters. It was hung up using ropes around a particular territory for privacy. So the most notable feature of the Torogan is the panalong, wing-like house beam with a paku rabong or fern or naga serpent motif. These are ends of the floor beams that project and splay out like triangular butterflies wings on the facade and side elevation. So, the interior of the house is a cavernous hole with no permanent wall partitions, supporting the king post of the high ridge. Roof is the rampatan or tinai awalay. Central beams considered as the intestines of the house. What serves as the ceiling is cloth suspended from the rafters to absorb the heat from the roof. So, a karaba horn ornament at the roof apex of the Roma Adat in Batak. And Indonesia is distinguished from the Maranao Dongal.
Day everyone, especially to you sir. I'm Dendenji Dayagan from BTL EDH1. I will discuss this topic. It's all about the Ifugao Valley structural frame, the architecture bahay na bato. The Ifugao Valley or Nature House is said to be the first fabricated house in the world, according to the renewed anthropology outlay Bayer. It has been subject of many scholarly articles as it is considered to be one of the most indigenous and nearly perfect architectural construct by man. So, ang bahay ng mga Ifugao ay isang klase ng tradisyonal na bahay ng isang etnikong grupo ng mga Pilipino. Mayroong itong natatanging disenyong pang-arkitektura na sumasagot sa mga pangangailangan ng karaniwang Ifugao. Matatagpuan ang mga Ifugao sa mga kabundukan na nasa hilagang bahagi ng Luzon at alin sa mga pinakatanyag na lugar na kanilang kinabibilangan ay ang handang-hagdang palayan sa Cordillera. Is a example of House of Ifugao. Structural frame, tawag sa Tagalog ay balangkas ng ekstruktura ng mga Ifugao. The Ifugao house is the sturdy crafted of timber from Anugawan trees, raised on 4 posts which was buried 50 cm below the ground and locked in with stone. It reveals a complex technology that renders it a strength capable of with understanding devastating typhoons, torrential rain, violence, and earthquakes. Ang bahay daw sa mga Ifugao kay gibuhat og kahoy na ang tawag kay Anugawan trees. So, may karaniwang bahay ang mga Ifugao. Walang durungawan, mayroong matulis na bubong at 4 na matibay na ang poste para dili dayon madaot ilang balay pag bagyo or linog. Example of the structural the architecture. Also known as the Nipa hut, this architecture can still be found along the countryside. It is constructed of indigenous materials that can easily be found in their local surroundings: woods, planks, grass, bamboo, and large logs. Example of the architecture is the Bahay Kubo or Nipa hut is a type of stilt house of indigenous to be the culture of the Philippines. It is also known as a payag or kamalig in other languages of the Philippines. It also, the Nipa hut or Bahay Kubo is a common design of houses used by indigenous communities. This type of house is made of bamboo and nipa. It stands still and can be accessed with the ladder. It is usually divided into parts such as the living area, the salon, or the storage area beneath the house, the bubungan or the roof space, and the kesami or ceiling. Is the Bahay na Bato. Bahay na Bato, Tagalog literary house of the stone, is the type of building originating during the Philippine-Spanish colonial period. It is an updated version of traditional Bahay Kubo. Its design has evolved to maintain the architecture to front the environment of the whole archipelago of the Philippines to influence of Spanish colonizer and Chinese traders. Thus created was a hybrid or Austronesian architecture. So, nganong gitawag siya balay na bato kay ang gigamit man sa building is puro bato panahon sa mga Spanish colonial period. So, mauna ilahang tradisyonal sa unang panahon na limbawa magbuhat sila bahay kubo which is ang gamit nila kay bato. Mauna ilahang kumbaga design nila sa ilahang na maintain na instruktora nila sa Pilipinas. Mauna ang na-influensyahan punta sa ilahang if sa Chinese period pod which is nagbuhat pod sila hybrid learning na ilahang gi-eskwelahan. Is an example of House of the Stone.
Hello everyone, my name is Aymari Lumindon from BTLN HE1. So my assigned topic is all about the Ifugao Bale, the Bahay Kubo, and the Bahay na Bato. The Ifugao Bale. The Ifugao Bale or native house is said to be the first prefabricated house in the world, according to renowned anthropologist Otley Beyer. So this type of dwelling does not make uses of nails, thus it is also called the no-nail house. So, ang native house ay ginawa na walang gamit na pako, kaya ito ay tinatawag na no-nail house. It evolved from a more primitive dwelling called the abong, which is less permanent and is not raised. It is look like an elevated pyramid with wooden walls and ladders. So what does Ifugao Bale symbolizes? So it is express the political and economic status of its owner. Structural frame. The Ifugao house is sturdily crafted of timber from Amogawan trees, raised and four posts which was buried 50 cm below the ground and blocked with stones. Ang Ifugao house ay isang matibay na bahay na gawa ng mga Ifugao dahil ito ay gawa ng kahoy na mula sa Amogawan tree, and ang poste nito ay nakalibing ng 50 cm below the ground at ito ay nakalak gamit ang mga bato. So let's proceed to Bahay Kubo. So what is Bahay Kubo? It is also called a nipa hut or payag, kamalig or Bahay Kubo. So ang Bahay Kubo ay makikita dito sa Pilipinas. So it is a type of stilt house indigenous to the culture of the Philippines. Bahay Kubo built to give a welcome refuge in the rainy season and provide shade on a hot summer. The name of the primitive nipa hut is actually based on the Spanish phrase cubo, meaning cube, probably because of its rectangular appearance, and bahay is the Filipino word for house. The construction of the Bahay Kubo is totally based on the local needs and conditions. Fabricated with the ever-dependable bamboo or kawayan and banded together by the 3 strings with dried coconut leaves or kugon grass. Walls are made of nipa leaves or bamboo slats, and the floor is made of finely split, resilience bamboo. It can be transferred to any place, but it takes a reasonable large number of people. In transferring the Bahay Kubo, they put bamboo poles lengthwise and crosswise under the house, forming a strong frame to lift the stilts from the ground and literally carry it to its new destination. So para sa pag-transfer ng Bahay Kubo, gumamit sila ng bamboo poles na inilagay sa ilalim ng bahay para sa pagbuhat nito at ilipat sa ibang lugar. Ang activity na ginagawa nila kanina sa paglipat ng Bahay Kubo ay tinatawag na bayanihan. On architecture, Bahay Kubo is also known as nipa hut. This architecture can be still found along the countryside. So it is constructed of indigenous materials that can easily be found in their local surroundings like wood, planks, grass, bamboo, and large logs. Ang Bahay Kubo ay gawa lamang sa mga indigenous materials na makikita sa ating paligid, gaya ng mga kahoy, bamboo, mga damo, at iba pang mga gamit. A typical Bahay Kubo only has one large open, multi-purpose room for dwelling called bulwagan. It is a cellar called silong where most household chores are done. So let's proceed to Bahay na Bato. Bahay na Bato or House of Stone is a type of building originating during Philippine-Spanish colonial period. Bahay na Bato is made by solid stone blocks or bricks and posts as foundation instead of just wood. So ang Bahay na Bato ay gawa sa matitigas or matitibay na bato or mga bricks. The Bahay na Bato is described as a house with wooden legs and stone skirt style of construction which makes the house a sure survivor of earthquake. Ang Bahay na Bato ay isang matibay na bahay na gawa ng bato na hindi masisira kung dumating man ang earthquake or typhoon.
Hello everyone, my name is Kayan Pablo from BTLED HE1. And now, I will discuss my assigned topic, which is other indigenous houses in the Philippines. We all know that Bahay Kubo is not only the Filipino traditional house here in the Philippines, but there is more. Bajau houseboat or Vintas, known as the sea gypsies of the Philippines. It has a range of 12 to 60 feet long, but not more than 6 feet wide. Usually, the Bajau houseboat cruise along the islands in the Sulu archipelago. It was made with Ocal design, which is usually found and used by the Lumad people of the southern Philippines. Adding more, the purpose of Bajau houseboat is to make their living from traditional free diving for fish and pearls. So when it comes to architecture, the Bajau houseboat was built on stilts that are carefully placed in between coastal rocks and coral. This shows communal efforts, which is to ensure no wildlife is harmed as the set foundation. Adaptability. The term adaptability is how the Bajau adapt to their environment. Mandaya house. The Mandaya house, wholly made of carefully bamboo flattened into slats and halts, together by horizontal bamboo strips or a rattan. It has a single room and a small kitchen area. Symmetry art. Symmetry art requires clarity and consistency. Focus on paintings or drawing balance of an image. It also relates to color and other compositional techniques. Symmetry art should achieve the balance of the both sides of the image to look identical and to attract the viewers. So when it comes to unbalance, it can lead overpowers on the other areas of an image. It may result unsuccessful. Ochre. Ochre is a design or a pattern of rendered or carved in hardwood, brass, silver, and wall painting. In curvilinear and Arabic geometric figures. The ochre motif shows how skillful is the mariner. And that's all. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. My name is Carla Misagayan, and right now I am going to discuss the assigned topic given, which is the improvisation on various arts forms. But before to discuss, let me share to you a little bit of importance this lesson. And this chapter focuses primarily on improvisation in the arts as discussed in philosophical aesthetic supplemented with accounts of improvisational practice by arts theorists and educators. So, improvisation is the art of acting and reacting in the moment to one's surrounding. This can result in the intervention of new thought patterns or new ways to act. In any life or art form can occur more sometimes if it is practiced as a way of encouraging creative behavior. This intervention cycles occurs more often when it is accompanied with true and intuitive understanding of the skills with which one is improvising. So improvisation means it is creating or performing something spontaneously or making something from whatever is available. In the performing arts is very spontaneously performance without specific or scripted preparation. So when we hear the word improvisation means a state of unprepared or not ready to perform, just like impronto. So the importance in improvisation can apply to many different abilities or forms of communication. like musical performance, cooking, presenting a speech, sale, personal or romantic relationship. So, in spiritual matters, where one can derive an inspiration and support from higher realms toward a foundational preparation through a clear and focused extemporaneous thoughts and action. The art forms types could be individual or group, is acting, dancing, singing, playing musical instruments, talking, creating artworks, problem solving, or acting in the moment and in the response to the stimulus of one immediate environment and inner feelings. So when we say art form, so this could help us that we can aware to something art form types like singing, dancing, and acting. So kini siya makahatag siya og dako kayo nga tabang sa tua as a student. And in the contact body improvisation, this referred to have a partner in dance or the dancing is unpredictable and inspired by the physical and energetic contact to the partner shares. And other term of contact body is the past modern dance. So, contact improvisation is an honoring of every moment. There is a sweet surrendering that happens when our bodies stay faithful to what is happening now. One learns to recognize and differentiate impulses on our movement choices and our partner's choices. So, contact body improvisation developed in 1973 and that is now practiced around the world. Originated in from the movement studies of Steve Paxton in the 1970s and developed and continued exploration of Judson dance theater. So thank you for listening and I hope you can understand more. So thank you and God bless.
Good day everyone. I am Riza May Pitalino Modelo from BTL-8 HE1 and I am the part of the reporter for today. And my topic is all about the sound improvisation in the theater improvisation. Sound improvisation. Musical improvisation, also known as musical extemporization, is the creative activity of immediate in the moment. There are many kinds of music. Definition is a performance given extempore without planning or preparation. Definition is to play or music or sing extemporaneously by inverting variation on a melody or creating a new melodies, rhymes, and harmonies. First, Encyclopedia Britannica defines it as a extemporaneous composition or free performance of a musical passage, usually in a manner comforting a certain stylistic norms but unfettered by the perspective features of a specific musical text. Theater improvisation. An improvisational theater, consists of a comedic, poignant, or a dramatic stage performance, usually with a wide cast of actors and actresses. Improvisational theater introduces an interactive relationship between the cast and the audience. Improvisational performers work together to define the rules of the scene. Different props, uniform, and seating are used to co-create the storyline. Solving improvisational challenge. First, the mental block. As you learn your piece of movement, you will find the times that your work is improvisation follows easily and at other times. Improvising is much more difficult and you feel blocked. When that happens, you need to be patient with yourself. Since you cannot expect you mind and nobody always to be equally receptive. Second, remembering new movement. Many students have trouble remembering movements discovered during an improvisation season, but this problem can be solved through practice. Fitting it all together. You've always discovered that movement to do always come forth in a logical manner. Fourth, difference in the concept. If a piece seems to be taking shape in a certain direction, explore that direction even it's differ from your original conception in your work. The creative process requires that you be open to all positivities as they occurs. Fifth, mindset. Fear is the number one killer of creativity in anything that you do. It's not easy to get put on the spot in front of an audience and improvise. To pull off the successful performance, we must overcome fear, self-doubt, and the myriad and distractions.
Art is not what you see, it is what you make others see. A famous quote from Edgar Degas. A very pleasant day to everyone. It is I, Elvin Gipulan from BTLED AFA 1, a group reporter and a group leader from Group 6. Our topic that we're going to tackle today is all about the indigenous art. For the introduction, Filipinos are probably one of the most creative and colorful people around the world. You can tell just by looking at any types of art we have. Sadly, some of these art forms are now dying as the younger generation does not seem to have any interest in learning about them. The indigenous arts are most sensitively reflect the communal orientation being the most lucid and expressive symbols of cultural values. The indigenous art Philippine indigenous arts are as diverse and its islands and complicated as waterfalls and varied in its language and unique as it is people. Throughout the 7,107 islands in the Philippines archipelago, Hazira offers unique places and cultures where all forms that arts and crafts and flourish can some be considered spectacular by the others, such as the Ifugao rice terraces or the native Ifugaos built by hand, or our own version, that Great Pyramid. Philippines art may not be as popular as the other Asian arts such as Japanese and Chinese, but it doesn't mean that it's not less spectacular. The art scene of the indigenous people of the Philippines may not be as popular as the other parts of Asian countries, but it no means that diminishes the variety of originality and creativity of the Filipinos. They have a time and again shown the Filipinos that can be the best all around the world when it comes to the arts and field. Indigenous Philippines art is made by the indigenous peoples of the Philippines. It includes works in raw materials such as extracts and trees, fruits and vegetables. Some of the art treasures of the Philippines are found in the rocks, caves, trees, and woods. Some of these indigenous art are: number 1, the architecture. Wonder over the world, the heritage site Banawe Rice Terraces, 8th wonder of the world, carved from the high Cordilleras over 2,000 years ago. These rice terraces were carved from the mountains and by the native Ifugao people. The Ifugaos made the walls of the hundred and mud and a clay where they have flattened in the slopes where it could hold the water essential to the rice growth. It had been the way of life of the Ifugao mountain tribes for despite for 200 years kept alive up to this day. Number 2 is the sculptures. Sculptures is three-dimensional artwork created by shaping, combining, and hard materials, typically stone, such as marble, metal, glass, or wood, or plastic materials such as clay, textiles, polymers, and soft metals. Carving is one of the techniques used in sculpture. We are so when you are enjoying or making a sculpture, you need to have a techniques on how to carve. You need to have a differences artworks that you can showcase to all the people that are surrounded or people who are going to see your artworks, so that it will be more sophisticated, it will be more beautiful, and you will going to appreciate about the stories, about the feedback, what you have done in your artworks. So that's it. Technique is a must and is a very important tool when it comes to artworks. The most important thing in sculptures is the quality, the quantity, and continuing use. Are the wooden bulol or bulol carved in Ifugao craftsmen or the mountain province Luzon, often in pairs, male and females. Bulol represented the guardian deities and plays a rice grainiers and ensure beautiful rice. So that's what they do when they have sculptures. They make a bulol. It has made by pairs, the male and female, to be represented guardian and deities, and are the place where so that they will have a greatest harvest in their community. And proceeding to number 3, which is the weaving. Weaving means to make a cloth or other objects. Thread or strands or material are passed under and over each other. Weaving in the Philippines has different forms, functions, and materials. They also have a design and techniques used. Most of the common forms of weaving in the Philippines are the forms that hats, mats, bags, baskets, and textile, that clothes and blankets. Fiber derived from the abaca plant is widely grown in certain regions in the country. It also have handcrafts like bags, carpets, and clothing made of abaca. So here in our barangay, we have plenty of abaca, and it is very crucial, which has played a vital role in our society, because through abaca we will be able to sustain our needs, our daily needs. So it is not just only enduring into the art, it's not just only representing for the people who are been involving and have a skills on arts, but it's also providing the financial needs and the skills of one community. At number 4, we have pottery. I know that some of you and all of us were very knownful about the pottery. So pottery are the objects that are first shaped of wet clay. These are hardened baking. Pottery includes both decorative and practical items, such as bowls, vessels, dishes, vases, and dishes and lamps. Pottery in the Philippines varies in forms and functions. Filipino potters makes pots of different sizes, shapes, and designs, which are usually geometric with styled nature theme motifs. The functional pieces are made on the need wood have a race. An example of this is palayok. This palayok we are very knownful about this. Which is used for cooking. Banga and tapayan, yes, are used for storing liquids. These are also a clay where the stove or kalan. The Burnay pottery in Ilocos Sur is still a lively tradition and continues to this present. So these are not just only a living example of arts that can help us, but it also help us for the household chores. We have what we call kalan to help us on for our cooking, and what we call this the banga. Yes, banga, palayok, and also the burnay, which is some of those are tapayan for storing the liquids, or for some other, for example, the waters, which is very important and very significant in our life as a human, as an individual in our local area. At number 5, we have a body adornment. Physical ornamentation can be categorized into 3 areas specifically used for the traditional costumes, textiles, jewelries, and tattoos. The designs are vary depending on the local usage or the function of the ornaments. Since the early 16th century, jewelry making in the country has been practiced for the country. It is believed that the skills of the early Filipinos jewelry makers are adopted from the Asian neighbors like the China. However, the non-Muslim peoples in Mindanao decorated with colorful and distinctive costumes with glass, beads, shells, and metal bells and chains. And now let me have our privilege to move on and to proceed into our next topic about the Muslim arts. Islamic art places an emphasis on creating an art form that is built for beauty, respect, and teaching of Islam. The development of Islamic art in the Philippines. In the 13th century, traders and missionaries have introduced the religion of Islam in the Philippines. Islamic art meshed with ethnic culture and produced a Filipino-Muslim art that reflects an ethnic background and Islamic identify the people. However, the global development exposed the Filipinos Muslim to its Middle Eastern roots, who have become their main source and representation of Islam art. Art of Filipino Muslim. Islamic art in the Philippines is found predominantly in the Muslim ethnic groups, where every group offers their own distinct flavors of Islamic art. Mosques in the Philippines have a common architectural feature that is similar with South Asian neighbors. It is made of a light material such as wood, bamboo, cocoon grass, and was used in the building of the early types of mosques. But these light materials did not last long. Today, mosques, however, are structurally patterned after the design of Middle Eastern counterparts or model 2013. The only reminders of a Filipino Muslim art inside mosques is traditional art from known as Ukir. This art is formed and believed to be the Hindu or Chinese influences. Ukir uses geometric and floral artworks. One popular motif is an art form that is used of an imagery of a dragon or a serpent. There is other figural representation of Filipino Islamic art such as a burak or a winged horse with a head of a woman. An imagery relates Prophet Muhammad ascension to heaven. This also the other famous creature, the Sarimanok, a symbol of bravery and nobility. The Sarimanok is a legendary bird of Maranao people who originated from Mindanao, an island of the Philippines. It comes from the word sari and manok. Sari means cloth or garments, which is generally assorted colors. Philippine Muslim homes represent their identify, therefore Islamic art is seen in their houses. These houses usually contain framed calligraphy of Quran passages in its walls. The ornaments usually are made from Muslim-dominated countries like Malaysia, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. The brought home the overseas Filipinos worker as mementos of their pilgrims. Clothing reflects the style of colors in their ethnic background. A design related to the Islam is that used in the Philippines, that is batik called design. This kind of design traces that influences from Indonesia. It contains abstract themes with grace, geometric and a floral design. However, human and animal depiction is a rare motif in batik. Today, Filipino Muslim believe that the following dresses requirements shows their Muslim identity, but have now considered the Middle East as reference for the proper Muslim dresses. For a long time, Islamic is in the Philippines has been linked is their ethnic background, but globalization has contributed to the changes of the visual expression of Islamic art. The Christians' art. When the Spaniards arrived in the Philippines in 1521, the colonizers used as an art of a tool to propagate the Catholic faith through beautiful images. The influence of Christian religion is manifested through the arts and the social function of society. Among the art forms from the influences can be seen architecture, music, literature, and other visual arts. The religion became an instrument for the creativity of a Filipino to flow in. Through the ethnic art from such as pottery, weaving, and a metalwork were retained the Spanish friars and the Chinese. The colony primary trading partners were slowly introducing newer art forms. Let's talk about painting. The Spanish friars introduced Western painting in the Philippines to artisans who learned to copy on two-dimensional form from the religious icons that friars brought from Spain. For the first century, the Spaniards' colonization or painting was a limited religious icons, portrait or saints, and the Holy Family became a familiar sights in churches. In the Church of Paitsi, Laguna are two works of Joseph Pusiano Dans in 1905 and 1970, probably one of the earliest recorded painters of the Philippines and the history. Langit, Lupa at Impierno in 1950, Heaven, Earth, and Hell. The three-level painting which shows the Holy Trinity, Mary the Mother of Christ, Saints, the seven blessed sacraments, and the second painting is entitled Purgatorio or Purgatory, which shows the 8 forms of punishments of soul's patterns through the cleansing before reaching heaven. In 1921, Damanian Domingo opened the first formal fine arts school in the country in his house. In 1950, under the Junta de Comercio is a new art school. The academic or Academia de Dibujo y Pintura was opened with 70 enrollees. However, Enrique Nieto Zamora, a new employee that post office and a graduate of Academia de San Fernando on Madrid, was appointed as acting director of academically paintings by Spanish, European, and academic style of painting. Thank you so much guys for watching, thank you for listening, and I hope that somebody else or someone has been instilling the ideas and learnings for what I have been reported. And thank you for your presence, thank you for your time, thank you so much ma'am. Good day and God bless us all.
Everyone, I am Micah Jane Carmen from BTLADHE1 and I'm going to share a brief discussion about architecture and sculpture. Start first with architecture. So what is architecture? Architecture is an art and science of designing structure and spaces for human use. The carving of Anito was transformed into sculpture of the saints. These saints were primarily used for church altars and retablos. These retablos is also called altarpieces, which include for churches carving. Retablos is the central point of any Catholic church. As well we've seen in Catholic churches, they have a figure of their town saint, and their town saints would be put in the middle, and the less important saint would be put in the both side of the town saint. The most elaborate retablos can be seen in San Agustin Church in Intramuros. Other part of church that have carvings are church doors and the church facade. Example is the Miagao Church in Iloilo. The facade is decorated with carved image of Saint Christopher carrying the Christ child on his shoulder under the coconut tree. During Spanish eras, the houses that were built has a place for worship. These houses contains different statues of saints, images of Christ and Mary, and other religious items. Today, having an altar in our house became a tradition in Catholic families. Sculptures of saints are either made of
ivory or wood, accented with jewelries and handmade costumes. Most structures and sculpture that we've seen in the church influence from the Bible, and most commonly the 12th station of the cross. In early Western civilization, Christianity has influenced the creation of biblical-inspired culture. An example of this would be the Edsa Shrine, wherein the historical people power movement in 1968 took place. The third one is graphic arts. So what is graphic arts? Graphic arts is a traditional category of fine arts including any form of visual artistic expression such as painting, drawing, photography, and printmaking, usually produced on flat surfaces. Important events in the history of graphic arts. In the 1590s, engraving was introduced by Spanish colonizers. 93, La Doctrina Cristiana en la Lengua Española y Tagala, which is Christian doctrine in Spanish and Tagalog language. This book, printed in country and published by Dominicans. On it was a woodcut engraving of Saint Dominic by Juan de Vera, a Chinese convert. Lastly, in 1733, commissioned by Father Murillo Villarde, Francisco Suarez, circa 1690 to circa 1762, and Nicolas de la Cruz Bagay, 1702 to circa 1765, collaborated to depict landscapes, genresenses, and flora and fauna on the borders of maps. These two were probably the first secular images done in the country. These images illustrated the Passion written by Gaspar Aquino de Belen, entitled Mahal na Pasyon ni Hesus Kristong Panginoon natin na tula, or the Holy Passion of our Lord Jesus Christ in verse. Next is contemporary arts. So what is contemporary arts? Contemporary arts is the art of the present which is continuously in process and in flux. Contemporary art is also defined as an art produced at the present period in time. Contemporary art includes a development from postmodern art, which is itself a successor to modern art. Art, on the other hand, is the expression of one's feeling through creating something out of their imagination. The 70s was the historically cultural turning point for the Philippines because it was when an art institutions were built by the First Lady Imelda Marcos. Also, it was also the time when conceptual art entered the Philippines art scene. Solomon Saprid and sculpture and Francisco Manioza and architecture was also known at this time because of their individual works. Solomon Saprid, a modern Philippine sculptor who became known for his works in bronze. On the other hand, in architecture, architect Francisco Manioza, designer of Coconut Palace, built his own two-story bahay kubo with only 3 haligi and has a 1-inch coconut shell doors, a silong, Muslim room, sala, and master's bedroom with fish pond therein. During World War II, painters focused their artwork on the effects of war, including battle scenes, destructions, and the sufferings of Filipinos. The following are the known Filipino contemporary artists and their works. First is Maningning Miklat. Maningning Miklat is known for her Chinese bamboo zen paintings and poetry in 3 languages, which is Filipino, Mandarin, and English. The second one is Benedicto Reyes Cabrera, known as Bencab. He is a Filipino painter awardee as the National Artist of the Philippines of Visual Art in 2006. The third one is Jose Hoya, a printmaker, mixed artist, and a former dean of the University of the Philippines College of Fine Arts. Fourth is Onib Olmido, created populist art and depicted the marginalized part of the society, and also an award-winning Filipino painter. Fifth is Napoleon Isabelo Veloso Abueva, popularly known as Napoleon Abueva, and a Filipino artist. He is entitled as the father of modern Philippine sculpture. And the last is Lopez Caballo, an Gawad awardee for music in 2008. He has been playing the violin for Filipinos for almost a decade now.
Good day, everyone. So now let's proceed to the next discussion because I am going to discuss to each one of you the 7 Filipino musicians and singers. But before that, let me introduce to you myself first. My name is Dara Ninyakir Lampago from BTL Ed HE1. So, who are these Filipino musicians and singers? The first one is a Filipino painter who was the leader of the revolutionary 13 Moderns, who engaged their classical compatriots in heated debate over the nature and function of art. He was named as National Artist in 1976. Who is he? He is Victorio C. Edades. Second, he is a Philippine National Artist Awardee in Visual Arts. He is also a known printmaker, sculpture designer, and art administrator. A founding member of the modern Neo-Realist School in Philippine art. He even received the National Artist Award, the country's highest accolade in the arts in 1997. He is Arturo Rogerio Cruz. The third one is a native of Sulu. He's a sculptor, painter, photographer, ceramist, documentary filmmaker, cultural researcher, writer and articulator of the Philippine Muslim and culture. He is Abdulmari Asha Imao. The fourth one is an award-winning Filipino sculptor. He was born in Santa Ana, Manila. He is Eduardo Castrillo. Number 5, he was a modern Philippine sculptor who became known for his works in bronze, which he created by welding scraps of metal, producing a characteristic jag effect. Below is the picture showing his Taming of the Tikbalang, one of his major works at the Makati Commercial Center. He is Solomon Saprid. Number 6. I'm sure that majority of us here knows her because she is a Filipino lyric mezzo-soprano singer, an actress who starred in the lead role of Kim in the musical Miss Saigon. She also provided the singing voice of 2 official Disney princesses, Jasmine in Aladdin 1992 and Famulan in Mulan 1998. She was also named as Disney Legend in 2011 for her work with the company. Another clue, she was one of the coach in the Philippine singing contest, The Voice. So, kailan na mo ani niya because she is the one and only Miss Lea Salonga Chien, aka Lea Salonga. Number 7, last but not least, is our old Filipino virtuoso classical pianist, dubbed as Pianist by the New Yorker. Her artistry is a blend of daring musical instinct and superb training. She is Cecil Licad. Contemporary music in the Philippines usually refers to the compositions that have adapted ideas and elements from the 20th century art music in the West, as well as the lasting trends and musical styles in the entertainment industry. So to make it simple, it is any style of music that is current or modern, addressing the current issues in a manner that is appealing to the current audience. The manner of appeal may involve fusing more than one original music style together. Modern or contemporary art is a phenomenon of the post-war period in the Philippines. This is not meant to detract from the human efforts of Victorio Edades, Carlos Francisco, and Galo Ocampo, who are known as triumvirate in progressive art circles of the pre-war period. So the triumvirate is the founding fathers of the Philippine modern art, influenced the Western style of international art such as pop art. Social realism in a Philippine perspective is a broad description of different artworks, whose themes spoo biting. When we say spoo, it is something like kanang ipagawas nimo ang related sa commentaries, social political issues of the country. According to the art critic and writer Alice Guillermo, social realism reared its head during the awakening of politicized Filipino consciousness during the 1800s revolutionary period, and then again the first quarter storm in the 1970s. So in other words, it is the art that exposes the conditions of society. It is also the term used for work that aims to draw attention to the real socio-political conditions. So here are the following of some social realism artists. What are these social realism artists do? This realist painter used common laborers and ordinary people in ordinary surroundings to engage them in real activities as subject for their works. Figurative art is one of the most popular art movements because it is representational, meaning it is derived from real object sources. Early figurative art in the Philippines is mostly realistic and classical, but in modern times, surreal depictions of human figures and conditions centered figurative art. In other words, it describes any form of modern art that retains strong references to the real world and particularly to the human figure. It is also any type of art where the subject matter is recognizable from the real world. Sometimes it is also called figurativism. So the following are some of the artists include the old masters like Juan Luna, Felix Resurrection Hidalgo, and so on. The abstract art and non-representational art. It is an object from the natural world, and the ideas are portrayed using the colors and form. The aim of this is to take subjects from reality, but present them in a way that is very different from what they are viewed in our reality. So to make it understandable, this is an example of abstract art. This kind of art is always connected to something visual from the real world. Work that does not depict anything from the real world is called non-representational art. Conceptual art. In this art, the idea is more important than the object and encompasses site-specific art installation. It gives emphasis on the artist's thinking while the artworks are merely documented on the artist's thought. In other words, conceptual art is an art for which the idea or concept behind the work is more important than the finished art object. So, conceptual art is also mainly focused on ideas and purposes rather than the work of art like painting, sculptures, and other valuable objects. So, that would be all. Thank you.